Okay, so I am making this video and I'm going to keep looking over here because my notes are over there, but I'm making this video to describe the unit plan in which I implemented the student data literacy assignments for both DD and A for this semester, with the simple standard being that I wanted both of these students to be able to track their own data, see how they're responding to their learning outcomes, their learning potential, and how they reacted to different learning strategies. So critical academic vocabulary that I overviewed. I didn't necessarily have like a list of words that I wanted to highlight. I think I had more main objective points, with again, those being the ability to just track your progress and monitor how you are reacting or how the student is reacting to a specific lesson or a specific lesson outcome. So the student data literacy tracking artifacts that I used for DD and A were both previous assignments. For DD, it was his math homework assignments, and for A, it was just simple practice that was optional given from the teacher. And with doing so, I knew that they were able to implement their own process of tracking their data by one, being able to explain it to me and to the camera as I was recording. That's a very important part, because if you can explain a topic to somebody or something else, that's a clear way of knowing that they are understanding what they are doing. So I had them both explain the process of how they would be undergoing their self-grading process. And I also had them explain the different icons they use to dictate whether they got a question wrong or right. So for DD, he would highlight and circle the ones that he got wrong to review later with me. And then for A, she put happy faces or X's for right and wrong questions. If they weren't able to explain to me, for instance, why they were self-grading, why they were using certain icons, or simply why they were doing the assignment all together, then I would know that they were not understanding the purpose of the student data literacy tracking artifacts. Had they been able to show me that they did not understand, I would have went back. And one, especially with DD, I would have started implementing some of my own strategies that I wanted to try to use instead of Ms. Hubble's. But I also would have broken down the process of the student data learning artifacts. So for instance, I would start with just explaining why I want them to start going over their own work. Why I want them to start going over their own work. And I would probably even start with just showing them, hey, this is how you did with your homework, or just showing them their grades. I wouldn't necessarily introduce the whole idea of, these are your grades. What do they mean? How can we improve? I would break it down into three separate steps. So show them, yes, these are your grades. Maybe in a couple of weeks, once they understand, you're going to constantly review how you did. Then we can look into, how did that make you feel? Why do you think you got that grade or that specific outcome or on that assignment? So just breaking it up, and then, not giving them as much information at one time is how I would have addressed that. For those who already know it, for instance, a good example with A, after she had already mastered the process of grading her own assignments, I asked her, what does she want to learn in the future? So within her being able to reflect on, this is what I did to get a specific type of grade, she was then able to assess what she needs to do in the future to earn a better grade or to start studying future topics. I did not have as much time with DD and A as I'd want to. With A, I was seeing her on a pretty consistent basis, but more so for tutoring purposes. However, for DD, he is a student in my after-school program, and shortly after I selected him to assist me with my assignments and to give him that extra academic support, he started to go through some changes at home where he would either be staying with dad or staying with mom. And I noticed that if he stays with mom, he didn't stay for an after school program as much. And so I just noticed I asked him like, why aren't you coming to after school program anymore? You know, we're supposed to be doing our lessons. And he said based off the time that his mom gets off work, it just made more sense for her to pick them up right as school got out as opposed to waiting for our sessions to be done. So I didn't get to see him on a continuous basis like I thought I was. I kind of was able to pull him when I needed him the most. But with each lesson that we did, we always went over some of his previous assignments. We graded them and we always worked on the ones he got wrong together. And I let that be a choice for him, whether he wanted to self-correct by himself or whether he wanted to work on the problems with me, which he always did. It was an excellent and wonderful way for me to reconnect with him, but also reteach him some of the topics that he may have missed. So describe personalized learning and or blended learning strategy used in detail. So I mentioned in my writing portion of this assignment that essentially this was, the same kind of student data tracking. However, I do think the outcomes of both assignments differ for both students. So for A, like I said, it was more for like emotional regulation purposes. For Didi, I really wanted him to find value within his learning that did not reflect the goals of Ms. Hubble, that did not reflect the ideologies of myself. I really wanted him to understand this is his assignment. This is what he made on it. He has the power to change his learning for the future. And the beauty of it is that I can, regardless of if this class ends or not, I do want to continue to work with Didi so he can start to be more intrinsically motivated as opposed to just completing his assignments because I'm telling him to complete it. But I think that's the beauty of personalized learning and why it has such a dear place in my heart, because I was able to help two different students approach the same learning goal in two different pathways, and then allow them to branch out in their own ways even further. So just with personalized learning, the goal is to always keep the student at the center of instructions and to go with the flow of where they're learning. And I feel like if we complicate it anymore, then that's when we start to delve into perhaps making learning more generalized and we actually go further away from personalized learning than we'd want to be. So it's just student-centered mode of instruction, keeping our students first. Thank you.